Hello guys, welcome back to the Football Draft podcast. Follow if you're on Spotify, subscribe if you're on iTunes or YouTube. Today we have Gaz Drinkwater on the show today. Lovely to see you.
Oh, hello mate. Good to be here, pal. I'll be honest, the fact that you've got me on when we're recording this, the day after United have been knocked out in the FA Cup, I feel like you've already got me on the back foot today, but I'll try and keep the positivity and I'll try and keep it upbeat.
Listen, we just wanted to thank Gaz for coming on today. Gaz is a co-host of the BBC Radio Manchester's Talking Balls football talk show. I've been on that show a few times myself. I'm the Northern Ireland correspondent now at the minute, so
pretty much.
But it's great being on. So listen, Gaz, thanks for coming on today, man, and I'm excited to hear some of your opinions about the dreadful week of football from a United point of view anyway.
Oh mate, it's a pleasure. Can't wait to get into it. But yeah, always good to have you on Talking Balls as well, Ross. You help us out having a Northern Irish voice to give the correspondence from across the Irish Sea. We always love it, mate.
Exactly, a bit of a difference. But it's great being on. And I know the first time I was on, I had like AirPods in, and I was really, really nervous because I'd never been on the radio before. And I went on and I could sort of hear like obviously the radio and stuff in the background. I'm like, do I speak now or have they mute? Oh god! And I just actually full blown panic, and I was trembling now when I was talking. But it's become natural now. So I'm all buzzed. So it's been
it's funny because when we started recording, you apologised to me. You were proper profusely apologising to me because you were on air with us. You were on air with us a couple of weeks ago, and I think you accidentally got my co-host's name wrong. What did you call Kyle?
Oh, I was broke. Kyle, Gaz's co-host on Talking Balls. I called him Chris. And
what I love, Ross, is that's like the biggest problem in the world to you, mate. That is nowhere near, by any stretch of the imagination, the worst thing that we've ever had a caller say. We had a caller called, probably shouldn't give a name actually. She wouldn't mind. She won't mind. Emily, right? She was on the phone, and she was basically, what was she? I'm trying to think what she was actually trying to say. She was trying to say like, and we've bust our chance too early or something like that. And she actually said, and we've just bust our load too early. And I'm like, oh my God, Emily.
Oh God, I feel a bit better now. We're calling Kyle Chris anyway.
It would have been worse if you were coming out with porn references. Don't worry about it.
Oh man. But listen, so it's great to have you on, and someone as experienced as yourself on our podcast. So again, thanks very much, mate. I just figured let's get right into it. Sunday, Man United versus Leicester, 3-1. Oh God, what an awful performance. What do you make of it, Gaz?
We were architects of our own downfall, weren't we? Really. I feel like it's a bit harsh now, isn't it, to jump on the sort of Fred bandwagon of not liking Fred because he's made that mistake. But everyone will say like, oh, it's dead easy to say this now, isn't it? But I've never really got him. Like, I just don't get what he brings to United, and everyone says he brings a lot of energy and he's good off the ball, and maybe I will say that he is good off the ball. We saw that in the goal that we scored against AC Milan, but if you've got a football player who is only good off the ball, what's the point?
Yeah, there's no purpose in that. I get what you mean, and I love his tenacity at times in the way that he fights to get the ball. But even so, that doesn't happen every game. If you got that every game and you got that same energy levels on the pitch, as well as what you said there about his off the ball movement, it would be a great asset to have. But we've seen through games that he's been out of form and doesn't do that role correctly. So I agree. I don't really get what purpose he serves in this team anymore. But at the same time, I wouldn't exactly blame him for yesterday's that goal. Maguire hits a terrible pass. You can't really blame Fred for all of that. You know what I mean? The blame lies equally there, but it does not excuse Fred at one bit. But I don't know, man.
Looking at it broadly, that's Manchester United out of another competition, which means Ole still yet with no silverware. Does that worry you guys?
Not particularly. I feel like Manchester United, when we gave Ole Gunnar Solskjaer the job permanently, we had to start looking at things in a bigger picture, and I think that's what we did when we gave him the job. And I think we did have this idea that, right, this is a process. This is going to be it's going to take a while to really give this club the culture shift that it needs. And Ollie is doing that, I think, and I think he has been ruthless with a lot of the players that he's got rid of. And I think the goal was always first season. Well, it was for me anyway. This was for me as a United fan looking at it. I always thought his first full season, got to be getting back into the top 4. He did that. Second season, all about improving on the first season. So we finished 3rd last season. We're now on track to finish. I reckon we'll finish 2nd or 3rd this season as well. And let's face it, we've played better football in the league in periods. And if we can couple that with a Europa League win, then that would be great, but not absolutely necessary for him to keep a job, in my opinion. And I think next season, though, if we're in this situation, people might say that I've got a lack of ambition as a United fan, and we should always want to win trophies every single season, and I get that. So if we're in the same position this time next season, I'll be kicking off. I will not be happy to be in this situation next season. I want us to still be in the Champions League, challenging for the Champions League, challenging for the Premier League. That is the position we've got to be in this 3rd season of his project.
I know what you mean, and to be honest, we've talked about it in the podcast in recent weeks too. I've kind of said if he doesn't win the Europa League, even if he... it's a very tricky one. If he stays 2nd and he doesn't win the Europa League, I would be on the fence. I wouldn't be either Ollie in or Ollie out. But if he doesn't win the Europa League and we maybe drop down to 3rd or 4th, I would be maybe saying it's time to go, man. I just think he's done what he's done very well, and he's going to be remembered as a very good manager that's done successful things for the club despite the lack of silverware. There is that culture shift and you can see that, but I think we need a more experienced manager that's going to win trophies for us. Do you know what I mean? And it's similar to the way that Tuchel's taken Chelsea. Lampard did his bit, but I think that Tuchel is now going to take them to a place, as a more experienced manager. He's going to take them, and I think they will be a dangerous side in years to come. I think we just need a manager like that that's going to take us to that position, and I just don't think Ollie's it. Do you know what I mean?
In the last episode, Liar made a really good point. He was saying, if Ole had not been a Manchester United player before, would you have sacked him if you took away all the sentimental values?
No, I don't think so. I think that Jose and Louis van Gaal, they surely did a lot worse than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has done at United by finishing outside the top 4. That is the bare minimum at Man United, that you finish top 4. And I mean bare minimum to the point where if you don't, you get sacked. And that's kind of the way it should be, I think, when you're at a club like Manchester United. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has created a much more balanced squad, which is more balanced in pretty much every single area. He's getting the wage bill down in terms of actually the highest earners at the club being worthy of being the highest earners at the club. I think we'll see another one of them leave this summer, probably David De Gea. And like I say, he's got a team that tries to play a certain way, and for me it is a positive way that he does want Manchester United to play. I think in certain games we've maybe not quite been up to it, and I'd maybe blame the midfield a lot in a lot of those games, especially against Leicester. That was the real problem, and I think we need to give him another. He needs to have another transfer window. He absolutely needs to, and we need to see what he can do with that, and whether he can build a team for next season that can actually challenge for trophies. Because all the good things I'm saying about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, it may well be the case that this is the furthest he can go with United. That he's a great manager who can get us into this position, which is a decent position, but he's not capable of getting over that next step. But I think you need to give him next season to find that out. And look, the cards that we've been dealt in the Europa League this year, I don't want to say it'll be, he's not going to get sacked if he doesn't win it, but I'm almost expecting him to win it now this season.
Yeah, I was watching the draw the last day, and we're very much the favourites here. I think that Ollie is very much capable, but I think myself and Gaz have talked about it before on Talking Balls. That idea of, will the board back him, and then if they don't back him, then what happens? Are we just going to go in another cycle where we get in another manager who goes so far with the club, and then the board don't back them either, and then it keeps going and going? So are we going to see a difference with a new manager, or is it something where the change needs to come from the top? Do you know what I mean? And that's where I don't really have an answer for that, but I think it's something that needs to be talked about.
I mean, Ben, what do you think? I mean, by the way, I'm surrounded by 3 Manchester United fans here. I'm an Arsenal fan, so...
Are you not Arsenal?
Yeah.
Oh, we can all just laugh at you then. No, it's all right.
Mid-table team.
Mid-table team, get out of here. It'll be really... It will kick off when if United play Arsenal in the Europa League final. That'll be a hell of a show.
Love to see that. Love to see it. Oh, that'll be great.
So yeah, Ben, what are some of your thoughts on some of the points there?
In terms of the backing and the transfer window, I think this summer will be different to previous because of the changes recently that have been made with getting a director of football and then getting Darren Fletcher as the technical director. Because now they'll be taking lead on like the transfers, and then it means that Ollie will be just talking to those 2 guys, and I just feel like it means that the players that he wants, he's more likely to get. For example, last summer it seemed really obvious that he wanted Sancho, but he never got him, and it doesn't look like he really wanted Van de Beek, but they ended up getting Van de Beek because it's pretty obvious by the lack of game time he's got that he wasn't really a target for Ollie. He wasn't really wanted, but I feel like now with this summer, I think they've already got some sort of plan with the 3 of them, and I think there will be a big success this summer with transfers that we'll get, and if we get the players that Ollie wants, I think we could, like Gaz said, go in the later stages of the Champions League, get closer to the likes of City, and then I'm sure Liverpool will be back to their best next season. So just challenge for the title more than the last couple of years, and I think next season will show can Ollie win us silverware, because I think so far he's not really had that team yet ready to challenge. That I think with Bruno Fernandes, I think we have kind of overachieved with him just because of how good he has been and like the impact he's had. Like it's second to none. Like I've not seen any other team get one player and then suddenly they go from 4th to 2nd and then winning the games that we never won before he came. So I just think that with a few more signings which Ollie wants, for example, if we get the likes of Sancho, if we get a defensive midfielder, if we get a natural goal scorer up front, because Cavani's not going to be here forever. He's reaching the end of his career anyway. So, but I think that next season will be exciting for United.
Just say, Ben, a couple of them positions that you said then. Did you say a centre forward, a winger, and a defensive midfielder?
Yeah.
See, I like that, right? Because you're the first person I've heard who talks about United's transfer targets this summer, and you've not even spoken about a centre half, or you've not necessarily mentioned a centre half. I think for me, a defensive midfielder who can do what Fred and McTominay can do, because there are players out there who can do what both of those do, like Declan Rice, for example. I don't think you'd even need a centre half necessarily if you brought in a player like that. I know Ross is pulling his face right now, but we've seen what John Stones has done this season for Man City, and as much as I've disliked him at times this season, I've seen promise in Victor Lindelof over the last few months, and I could almost see him potentially having a John Stones-esque revival at some point.
Yeah.
Well, Ross and Ben are a big fan of getting by within either of the 2 centre-back partnerships, but judging from what you're saying, you're completely happy with a Lindelof-Maguire partnership.
Don't say happy, right? Not happy, no. Because at times this season, right, it's been chaotic, and even like Lindelof's made Maguire look worse as well because the things that he lacks. But I think with Lindelof, a lot of the time it is a little bit of a mentality thing. And one thing he's brilliant at, we see when you see a cross come into the near post, and he's always in front of the defender ready to intercept it, and that's something that he was never doing the season before. And I'm just noticing little things in his game where I just feel like he's a little bit more confident in himself. The only problem is maybe Harry Maguire is the type of defender where he needs someone better than him, more experienced than him alongside him to get the best out of him. Yeah. So maybe it would be a bit too much of a risk to go in without a new centre back. But for me, a defensive midfielder is slightly more important. For me, it's striker, defensive midfielder, winger, centre-back. Like, if you were going to win the Premier League next season, you'd need all 4 of them.
Oh, so you think striker's the number 1 priority?
I think I'd say so, yeah.
God.
Who else do we have currently to score the goals as a striker?
I mean, provided they're match fit, you look at Martial is still a great player. He's just had an underwhelming. Oh man, you have to back Tony, man. No, Tony's had a very underwhelming season. I will give you that. But on their day, right, and I will say this, right, on their day, they are up there with one of the best front threes in the Premier League. Definitely. On their day, they're all firing on all cylinders. You know what I mean? I don't think striker or an out-and-out goal scorer is where we are lacking at the minute. I think really it's in the creativity from midfield. So I'll give you that. Probably CDM's the biggest one, but very, very close to that is a very good centre-back. I've always admired Jules Koundé. I think Koundé would solve a lot of our problems. He's like a better Bailly. He really good recovery pace. He's small. He can get in there and let Maguire do what Maguire does best. Win those aerial duels and those interceptions, and he can do that. What I think Maguire and Lindelof are two centre-backs that one centre-back could do well. If you give Maguire that responsibility, he's the captain, he's the skipper, he can do that. Let Jules Koundé be the guy that goes back for your recovery pace and makes those good tackles, and I think they would actually work as a partnership. So to say that we don't need a centre-back is completely false in my opinion. I just think
I just hearing what you said about Martial as well, Ross, look, I want United players to do well, absolutely, and you see Martial on his day, yeah, he's great.
He's amazing.
The only problem is his day for me isn't often enough, and you can get away with that if you're surrounded by consistent players in the rest of the team. Like Manchester United have had loads of players like this. Nani, the first one who springs to mind. Nani and Martial are almost similar in the way that they'd turn up in 1 in every 5, and they'd look world class in that game that they turn up in. The difference is with Nani, he was surrounded by a team full of consistent performers. Anthony Martial isn't, and I think that just comes across at the moment. And look, I know that it's really simplistic, this, and it is something that a lot of fans come out with when they're talking about Martial, but at the end of the day, it's okay at United if the other team performs better than you, if the other team, wins a game. That can happen. What you can't have is the other team working harder than you. Despite the fact that we did see it a few times yesterday, actually, Martial making some great runs back, we don't see it very often. And he's one of those players where when things aren't going well for him, he sort of sulks back in himself instead of being, right, I'm going to be the man to sort this out. And I think that's the player that Paul Pogba has become over the last few months, where he's been like, right, I'm going to take this game by the scruff of the neck. I'll win us this game.
Do you have any strikers in mind that you want to bring in?
Good question.
It's quite easy to say we want a centre forward, winger, DM. You mentioned Declan Rice there, but he is the captain of West Ham and he'll probably cost about 80 million.
Exactly, yeah. And I say them 4 positions. Look, I said we'd probably need all 4 to challenge for the league. I'm probably talking rubbish there. Probably need 3 of them, 2 of which being real, experienced, potentially 80 million plus signings. And look, people will roll their eyes like, it's, just ruining football, just going out and spending money. Well, this is Man United. 80 million. We made that on Park Ji-sung action figures. Like, we can spend that like it's nothing. That's no problem. So like it's our money, so let's go out and spend it. So I think this summer, look, Harry Kane, I know it sounds daft, but Harry Kane will want to leave this summer. I think you've got to keep your eyes on Erling Haaland. And if he doesn't want to go,
the Norwegian link, I'm telling you.
Exactly, yeah. And if he doesn't want to go City because the agent and Guardiola don't like each other, then we'll bring him to United. But if there's no chance of that one happening, I think the next most likely is Harry Kane. And if he says he wants to leave, which I think he's already put in the rumours out there that he wants to leave, then I think we could definitely go and get him.
Oh, I know what you mean, and this talk of a striker, and we do need someone. I'm not saying that that position definitely doesn't need filled, because it does, but it is the talk of priority. And a player like Declan Rice, and what annoys me about Rice is that we've seen now the English player tax. You may add 30 million to their value if they're English. Because it baffles me really that Liverpool signed Virgil van Dijk for 75 million and we got Harry Maguire for 80 million. So really Declan Rice, it'll cost us about 100 million easily. Moyes will not let him go for any less than that, I don't think. So spending 100 million, I think it is quite a big gamble, and I know you're saying it is our money and that sort of thing. I don't know if it's the best way to go, to have another massive signing like that and blow all their money. Look at what Liverpool did. I mean, look at how much money they spent on the likes of Andy Robertson, and look at all those players from small clubs that then they develop them into good players. Do you not think that's something that United should be looking more at, instead of going for one big marquee summer signing and hope that works out?
That's your Dan James right there you've got.
Dan James.
See, and I know what you mean. And look, because obviously I'm going to come out with the big players, because the big players are on everyone's mind at the minute. They're the players turning up at the moment. I'm not going to, point out some player doing absolute bits in the bottom half of Serie A, because naturally I don't know about them. But what I would hope is that Man United's scouting team does. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, United in the past, the sort of signings we'd make under Ferguson, we'd bring in players like Nemanja Vidic, Patrice Evra, maybe less so with Patrice Evra. I know he did play in the Champions League final the season before we signed him, I think. But you'd be looking at each other like, I don't really know what this kid has to offer. I don't really know what we're going to see with this player. And to be fair, with Vidic and Evra, the first few weeks, everyone was like, what have we done here? These two are idiots. And then they turned out to be absolutely world class, and we made them great players. So yeah, that is a United style way of doing things, I suppose. But
I just think we should do more of it. Yeah, and I mean, you look at Amad Diallo, like that is a great signing. He's so young, and look at the immediate impact he's had. Obviously not going to jump on that bandwagon just yet. He's had one wonder goal, and that was it. But at the same time, he seems like a good player, and seems that we can make him into a very, very good footballer. So I just think we need more of that, especially in the defence, because, and I've talked about Koundé. I mean, Koundé's probably going to cost an arm and a leg as well, but I just think signing them young and letting them develop, I wouldn't be getting rid of Lindelof, definitely not, but I just don't think, you always talk about attack, your attack wins you games and your defence wins you titles. That's just the part of, once we get the defence sorted and we get a rock in defence like Maguire is, I think he's capable of that, but he needs a better partnership. Once we get that, we are capable of so much, and I think that in a few years, if we get that sorted, we'll be challenging. Do you know what I mean? So that's what the next steps really for me.
By the way, who's that player that United paid the English tax for, who now wants to represent the Dominican Republic of Congo?
Wan-Bissaka. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. You know what, right? Can we talk about that a sec? Because, like, the Wan-Bissaka thing with him apparently wanting to represent Congo. Right, so if Wan-Bissaka in himself, like, if he feels Congolese and that's what he feels like his heart is assigned to, that's his nation, absolutely fair enough. If it's a personal decision, do whatever you want. But if it's a career decision, it feels massively unambitious. Like, it is not out of the question for Aaron Wan-Bissaka to break into that England team at some point.
It's definitely not. And maybe he's jumped the shark a wee bit. Maybe he's jumped too early. I don't see that there wouldn't be a place for him. And I mean, I'll say it right now for any Chelsea fans that would be listening. I rate Reece James a bit better than Wan-Bissaka, of course, but it's not by much. It's not by much, because Wan-Bissaka defensively is very good. I just think he has problems going forward, but he just needs to improve his game in that way. I think the real shocker for me, is Trent. Like, Trent is arguably on his day the best right back in the league, if not in Europe. So really, I think it's a bit of a weird one to not include Trent, just because of Liverpool's sort of inconsistency this season. I still think he's capable of a lot, surrounded by consistent players. But do you know what I mean? So I thought that was a bit of a weird one.
No, yeah, I thought it was strange as well. I mean, for me, Trent is up there. Yeah, absolutely. He's not been good in recent weeks, but he's got to be one of the best right backs in the world still. And look, he's still going to be going the Euros, and he'll still be getting games there, you'd think. But England, how many class right backs do we have now, and class right backs coming through? There's 5 or 6, because you've got the likes of Tariq Lamptey and what's your man's name at Norwich? Max Aarons.
Yeah.
Players like that coming through as well.
Callum Chambers,
yeah. And even this summer as well. Surely Kyle Walker's got to still be in with a shout, because he's been good this season, I think, Kyle Walker. But obviously going forward, this will be his last tournament, you'd think. So too many options for England.
No, I get what you mean, because like Bissaka is definitely in for a shout, and if it is a career choice, I do think he is being a bit ambitious here. But I personally think it's a more of a personal reason. I've got that gut feeling about that.
That's fair enough then. Do it. If that's what he wants to do, then absolutely full support to him, and I'll be cheering him on at the African Cup of Nations because I always love AFCON. It's always top. It's a wild tournament. It's crazy. I love it.
I heard this morning that Amad Diallo got his first call up to Ivory Coast. Him and Eric Bailly, obviously he's been called up before, but I think that's great for the kid, and hopefully he'll gain a bit more experience with that as well.
Isn't he like 18?
Is he? I think he's 19. I'm not quite sure. He's 18 or 19. But he's very young, and I just think he's capable of so much. And again, in summary of what me and Gaz were talking about there, I just think we need more of that. Those sort of recruitment signings that are long term. We're thinking for the future, And he didn't really cost an arm and a leg either. So it's those are the kind of signings we need to make. So I just hope he turns out good. But sure.
But you don't think those signings are more risky though, in a way, because if you're going to sign young players, and I mean, we did spend like 37 million on Amad Diallo, but do you not think it's more of a risk if we do sign young players like that and then they just don't live up to their potential? I mean, it's happened plenty of times before at United. I mean,
put it this way, I don't think it's any more risky than spending the likes of 80 million on Harry Maguire. Do you know what I mean? It's no more risky than that. You're spending more money. Of course, those players are part of your immediate future, but even so, there's no guarantee they'll turn out well. I mean, you look at signings that people paid an arm and a leg for, the likes of Eden Hazard to Madrid, and he's been terrible. Fernando Torres to Chelsea, and he wasn't great either. So you're taking a gamble either way. So for me, it makes no difference, and I think you just need to pick the player that's going to be the lowest risk. Do you know what I mean? With the greatest reward. That's the biggest challenge of it. But I just think we need to do more of that, personally.
As an Arsenal fan, a couple more Bruno Fernandes-esque signings can win you the league, in my opinion. Like that sort of impact in defensive midfield or centre forward. I could see United winning the league in the next couple of years.
And it's pretty, it's weird when you're talking about transfers because you're going into the summer and I'm here thinking, Declan Rice and Harry Kane. Like, that's not what happens in real life. Especially not FIFA. And exactly, mate. And sometimes you can sort of fall into that trap of thinking, well, United should have £250 million to spend, so it should just be as easy as that. And that's not just not how the world works, especially not in a post-COVID world. So, look, maybe it is just going to be one marquee signing, and I think if that's the case, then I know that Ross, you said there's other positions that you'd strengthen first. I do think it would be someone like Harry Kane. I think that's the one that just makes the most sense. And also, when you look at the players that United have spent the big money on in recent years, they are sort of marketable players, I guess you'd call, players that you can put on a billboard and they're going to sell billions of shirts worldwide. Harry Kane is that player. You can see us going from Jadon Sancho, he's that sort of player as well. But I think it'll probably be Harry Kane and then a less than £50 million centre-half and the same for a midfielder. But even then, it's going to be asking a lot to close the gap to City.
If I asked you Harry Kane or Erling Haaland, which one would you choose?
Haaland, every single day. Haaland. I just think the only reason I'm not saying everything go for him is because I feel like that one's not very likely.
No. He's got a release clause. He's got a release clause, I believe, that is like 50 million. I don't know.
It's next summer that comes in, but I just feel like someone's going to get him this summer. They're not going to wait another year to get him. And
I mean, City will be first in line, man, with the amount of money they have. They'll be first in line. I was just going to ask Gaz there. You mentioned there about Jadon Sancho and Harry Kane in the same sentence. If you were given the option, Harry Kane or Jadon Sancho, and you could only sign one,
Harry Kane.
Oh man.
I know, and I know that Jadon Sancho's loads younger, and I'm taking that into equation here as well, and I'm still saying Harry Kane because I feel like I can rely more on Mason Greenwood as the first choice winger for a whole season than I can Anthony Martial as the first choice striker.
No, that's actually where I disagree. No, I don't. I think Martial's just had a bad season. I think we as fans, and this is just me, I'm not saying for any of you to do this, but I just think as fans we need to give him the support. Players have bad seasons. I'm sure we're going to see it from the likes of Mason Greenwood and Rashford in the future. They're going to have dips in form. But personally, if he didn't play Martial, I'd be very happy playing Greenwood as the out-and-out striker and playing Jadon Sancho out the right wing and Rashford out the left. And I think
that's a good shout.
That attack would be lethal. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's all well and good us saying this, you know, the likes of Harry Kane with Rashford on the left and Greenwood on the right, or what I said, you know, but it's all grand, but those players won't get the service because provided Bruno Fernandes plays, he can't obviously play every minute of every game, you know, he's the only, I feel anyway, he's the only creative hub from that midfield. McTominay is useless at times. I think I would compare him to Nani as well. You know, you've seen him in the likes against Leeds there, and he scored 2 goals in however many minutes. And then Fred, obviously, as we've talked about, is very inconsistent. So really, I think you need someone to strengthen that midfield creatively to even maybe then think about what way you strengthen your attack. I think that's just the priority.
Surely Pogba's up there with creativity, though. I mean, okay, we lost 2 months of him through injury, but like look at what happened when we didn't have him. But then he comes on against AC Milan 3 minutes in, he scores, wins us the game.
I get that, but the only reason I'm thinking that maybe this is something I'm thinking wrong, I think he's going to go in the summer. You know, I don't think he's going to be part of the long-term plans, so that's why I didn't mention him. You obviously provide, say, Pogba signs a new 3-year deal or something, then that changes everything. You know, maybe Pogba and then put the faith in McTominay for a Pogba-McTominay, or even, hopefully, fingers crossed, a Pogba-Van de Beek pivot with Bruno Fernandes, and then looking long-term to maybe then a Jadon Sancho, Greenwood, Rashford. That's unreal. That would be really, really good, and I'm being really optimistic here. But at the same time, I just don't think he's going to stay. So
I'll be honest. I think he's signing a new contract, Ross. I think this isn't me knowing things and hearing things from BBC journalists. I don't know anything here. This is no prior knowledge.
ITK exclusive.
No prior knowledge here. But I think Paul Pogba, just the vibe that I'm getting at the minute from him, I think he'll sign a new contract. I think he will leave United, not this summer, but the summer after. But hopefully he can leave with a big title to go out on, and then he spent a few years at United and been relatively successful. But I think Pogba will still be here next season, and you're talking about creativity in the midfield. I think that you're bringing a new holding midfielder, and that sorts that right out, because you play a 4-3-3, you have just the one in as a sitting midfielder, and then you have Pogba and Bruno Fernandes in front of him, and I think that could be absolutely lethal, especially if it's a proper anchorman type midfielder who's just going to do the dirty defensive work. And by the way, there are some people saying that that's what McTominay's job is. That is not what Scott McTominay is. Scott McTominay should be your backup box-to-box midfielder. Yeah. He's a great box-to-box midfielder. He's not a defensive midfielder.
Yeah, 100% agree, man. But what I always get worried about, and I think Ollie's worried about the same thing, he doesn't put the faith in the quality of players that he has to have one player as the number 6, the likes of like a Matic there or a McTominay wrongly. I think he doesn't trust the players, and he needs to put 2 there. But do you not think that that's leading, and maybe I'm making things up, conspiracy, whatever, do you not think that maybe is a lack of faith in the 2 centre-backs to hold the defensive line? Do you know what I mean? So he feels he needs to play more defensive. Obviously, that whatever that works for his counter-attacking style. But do you not think that, if we got a better centre-back, the likes of Koundé there, who's both fast and very defensively solid, then we could then look at someone like a Declan Rice type to lead that defensive line with 2 number 8s going forward, a Bruno and a Van de Beek. Do you not think that would be better in the long run, instead of purely investing in a new CDM and leaving the centre-backs as they are?
That's quite possible. I just don't think United have an out-and-out defensive midfielder at all in the team. I just don't think we have that option, and I think we could really do with it. And yeah, look, I know what you're saying about the 2 holding midfielders protecting the defence, and I suppose that would be backed up by the fact that statistically, defensively, we've been quite good this season in terms of how few goals that we've let in. Yeah. However, despite that, in big moments, in big games, and we've seen mistakes from the defence, and they are capable of that, and it almost doesn't match up with the stats. So maybe you're right, and the two holding midfielders are making them look better than they actually are. So maybe it does have to be centre back and defensive midfielder this summer. But maybe I just don't want to give up on Victor Lindelof, despite the fact that I've given up on him in about 6 times this season already.
I mean, listen, put it this way, the same way you feel for Martial, that idea of maybe perhaps giving up on him and shipping him out, is the way I feel about Lindelof. I've no faith left in the guy. I've never particularly warmed to him either. I don't actually think, and listen, I've never particularly warmed to Maguire either, but if you have to, because he's your captain, so it's not purely Lindelof, it's the two of them, but if there's one of them that's going to go, it's Lindelof. So really, I think we just need a fresh centre-back, man. We just need someone, a better Bailly, someone who's not as injury prone, but that will... you've seen the way Maguire and Bailly play together. I mean, they're unbelievably tight. There was a really good block. I remember this so vividly. The block against Villa, I believe, we were 2-1 up, and Bailly's block against Grealish's shot from outside the box. And to me, really, maybe this is what the media painted, but it looked like it was going in, and if it wasn't for Bailly. So those sort of shot-stopping moments is what we can get from Bailly, along with a Bailly-Maguire partnership. If we get someone like the likes of Koundé, or even maybe a Varane, or someone that did that same job, then we'd be sorted, and you could then make that change from there. I just ultimately think it's the centre-back that needs looked at first and foremost.
I started taking defensive statistics with a pinch of salt when I found out Arsenal had like the second best defence in the league. So sometimes you really do have to look at it because one individual error in a game can lose you 3 points, and then that only goes down as like one goal conceded in the whole game. But what you said about Bailly there as well, you got to remember, the guy's injury prone. Mm-hmm. You can't trust him a full season.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But getting someone who is fitter and younger that can do the same thing and then wouldn't be as injury prone, I think is ultimately ideal. Do you know what I mean? It's a better Bailly, and then keeping Bailly on the bench then, and if you could get Lindelof out for maybe 30 mil, invest him in a part of a deal for a new CDM. I just think that's the way we need to go. Do you know what I mean? But that's just me.
I mean, what you said then about potentially selling Lindelof and using the money to invest, you never know. That's what United's board might demand of Ollie this summer. He might say, look, if you want to go and spend all this money, you need to get rid of players first. And if that's the case, then maybe we will see the likes of, I'm not going to say Lindelof, I think it'll probably more likely be Bailly, but Bailly and maybe even Anthony Martial, who I do think, and I wouldn't, this is the thing, right, when we talk about United players, and we, apart from you, James, sorry, but we as United fans, and we're criticising these players, and we're saying we don't want this player to be at United because he's not shown that he's good enough. That doesn't mean that we don't want that player to be brilliant. Like, I hope that everything I've said about Anthony Martial is dead wrong, and next season he scores 40 goals. However, you've just got to look at whether I actually can see that happening. And for me, I think that now would be a really good time to sort of cash in on Martial. I think we'd still get a decent fee for him at the minute, and maybe that's what we'll do this summer. You can use him as a paperweight, maybe, to get someone else from somewhere else. But
I know what you mean. I think for what Martial has achieved in his time at United, he does attract that certain name. But to be honest, and this is really where I agree with you, if you don't do it now, then next summer I don't think he'll be worth half that. Do you know what I mean? If he continues to have the same form that he's currently in. So looking at it from that, it is a bit of a gamble, because do you gamble on him performing better next season, or do you gamble on getting the most money out of him now when next season you'll not get half as much? I think that's the real
how much would you
conundrum
think you'd get? How much would you think you'd get from Martial? He cost you, what, 50 million?
I'd say
35.
I don't know, maybe 40. Upwards of 40, maybe a French club or something, or maybe that French affiliation. Maybe you'd get a good amount of money for him.
But anyone apart from like PSG wouldn't be able to fork out 40 million for Anthony Martial.
I've got an idea.
Go for it.
Let's do 80 million plus Martial for Erling Haaland.
I mean, Ben, I'd go for it, but I just don't know whether Dortmund would.
No, Dortmund wouldn't. Nah. But I know what ultimately I get what you mean, that you would get some amount of money in Martial. And here, all this talk we're doing, maybe they might sell them both. Maybe Lindelof and Martial will go, and that'll be invested into a new deal for Jadon Sancho or Declan Rice or whatever. So it's just whatever Ollie decides to do. I just hope ultimately he gets the money from somewhere and the board backs him in whatever he does. Because you've seen the way Van de Beek's been treated this season, and you can tell that he isn't an Ollie signing. He's a board signing. I just hope that Ollie gets to make some of the signings that he actually wants to make with the money that he earns from either selling players or whatever, wherever they get it. So yeah,
I think we need to do what Chelsea did, but smarter. I mean, they went and spent 250 million. They got players like Ziyech, Havertz, Werner. I mean, which they are good players, but they just haven't clicked yet. But I think they will. But Man United need to spend that kind of money, but in a better way. I feel that Chelsea did, because I think they just kind of went all out with attacking players when I always felt like their defence was their biggest problem. But I mean, Tuchel seems to have worked something out right now. But under Lampard, it was obvious that their defence was a big issue. But if we could get that kind of money, which we know Man United have, it's obvious with the size of the club we are and the money that we can make. It's just whether they're willing to do that for Ollie, and depending on his targets. But I think we do need to spend a lot of money, because like Ross and Gaz were saying, there's 3 or 4 positions that we need to fix in order to properly challenge for Champions Leagues, Premier Leagues, and just getting silverware in general.
And then after that, next summer, if Ole doesn't win anything, is that you guys saying, right, okay, he's had his chance, he's had his window, he's got to go?
I mean, look, you'd have to weigh up the season at the end of the season, because if it's a very tightly run title race and it's very exciting up until the last day, then you never know. Maybe we could say, all right, we were so close there, he deserves another year, and there's clear progression. Then maybe. But for me, next season has to be about one thing and one thing only, and that's trophies. And United need to be back winning trophies. But I don't mean that in a sort of, if we're not winning the league, forget about it. Like, we need to be in a league challenge as well and be getting trophies. And maybe some people will say that's a big ask, but for me, when you're at Man United and you're in your 3rd full season, it's not too much to ask to demand trophies.
Sorry, I was just going to say, yeah, I 100% agree. I think we are capable of that. And you've seen the way that Bruno has shown, and that culture shift has it's been really visual, and you've seen that. So I just think that bit more quality in the team, a bit more squad depth, and you will start to see results. But provided, and this is where I ultimately stand, that he needs to win this Europa League, and if he doesn't, I will have real problems with how comfortable I feel with Ollie in the job. So I think that's just where I stand. But yeah,
would you guys say they're favourites?
Oh, by a mile.
Oh, by come on.
But, no, come on. I know that Arsenal are in it, James, but Arsenal, I mean, compared to yourself to United this season, you just take a look at league positions, and it suggests that United are much stronger. I think that when we played against each other this season, the win that you got at Old Trafford was so frustrating, because Ollie treated you lot with way too much respect. Like, he didn't set up like the same tactically, but he almost was as conservative against you lot as he was against the likes of Liverpool and City, where we did get 2 0-0 draws from them earlier in the season, which I said were good results. But if you're getting results like that against teams like Arsenal and Chelsea as well, then not necessarily. I still think that in a final, we'd have too much, and I think we would win.
And I think a final's a different beast as well. It can bring out something that neither club have seen. However, James raised a very good point on a previous podcast, saying that Arsenal don't really have anything to lose now. You're not going to get anywhere in Europe now in the Premier League, and that this is all you've got. So really, from that point of view, it's kind of all or nothing for you. So that's the only way I'd maybe worry about yourselves. It's not even really for quality of your team or if you can beat us or not. It's purely on the night. Can you outclass us with the mentality? I think that's really where things lie. So it would be a really, really great game, but I don't know. I still think we'd come out on top, personally.
I would say that on paper, United are the favourites, but as we've seen too many times this season, under pressure, we have the tendency to crumble. Our defence just doesn't look anywhere near as comfortable as it has. The team often, the passing is so sloppy because they feel like they're trying to rush for a goal because they feel that pressure, and I just don't think that if we did reach the final, I do worry that we would crumble because, like I said, like under pressure right now we can't seem to get through those games and win those important games that will win us trophies at the moment. So it's hard for me because I feel like we should win it, but at the same time, mentality wise and under pressure, I do kind of think that Arsenal could actually beat us. Just that's just me, but
yeah, repeating what Ross said earlier, Arsenal have nothing else to lose, and even whether that's the games leading up to the final, Arsenal will be prioritising the Europa League. They're not going to be resting players or anything like that, whereas United, although they're sitting quite comfortably in the top four, they might start to think, right, okay, we've got this big game in the league, we might need to rest Bruno Fernandes here in the Europa League. And also, Arteta has a really good record against Ole, and that's not just in the last game itself. I don't actually know if Ole's beaten Arteta yet. Yes, take stats with a pinch of salt, but I honestly think Arteta has Ole found out here.
Well, look, when you talk about resting players, the only way that United and Arsenal can play each other in the Europa League is in the final now. So we won't be resting players if we're in the final. Maybe if the Premier League campaign has, caused a bit of fatigue, then maybe you could see it like that. But I think if United get to remember, Ole's not took United to a final yet. Let's not forget. So we don't actually know how United can perform in an actual final, but I think that you've got to give credit to the performance against AC Milan for me. I know there's been certain criticisms, but the fact that we didn't concede in that second game when all the pressure was on us, that surely shows that the team is able to withstand some sort of pressure, and against a good team as well in AC Milan. So look, I think that we'll find a lot out in the next game, because United have got Granada, obviously, the next game in the Europa League. If we can absolutely wipe the floor with them, which we should do, then I'll be looking forward to the next potentially 3 games in it, because I really would be confident.
Playing devil's advocate, you said United are good at withstanding pressure against AC Milan, but all it took was United to switch off for 1 minute in the last minute of the first leg to concede an away goal to AC Milan. So Arsenal and United are similar in the respects that you don't know what to expect from them in certain games. It's really unpredictable. So if they do play against each other in the final, it'd be hard to put your house on either team, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's a great point. But I've talked about this with my brother as well. And my brother's a Liverpool fan, for anyone who doesn't know.
Go ahead.
I know it's awful. But what we've talked about, and obviously it's Liverpool are just having an off season. We're not talking about that, but I think United need more predictability. I think Man United need to be like we as fans, and I can comfortably say this, I think, for everyone here in the room, that United's defence never really looked comfortable. It generally, I'm not talking really about individual games, but I can't always anyway be confident in the fact that I know this attack is never getting past Lindelof and Maguire. Whereas you look at the likes of Liverpool there in their Champions League winning season, no one was getting past Van Dijk and Joe Gomez. So we need we need more predictability. We need more confidence in our centre backs, so that going forward we're not conceding stupid goals like those, and especially set pieces. We're so weak from set pieces. I don't know whether it's our zonal marking or and it doesn't seem to change. So season by season, this isn't the only season that this has happened. This is something that we need to look widely at. That if it's a coaching thing, if it's the players veering off from the coaching, I don't know, but it's something that we need to look at, especially at set pieces, giving away those stupid goals. So we need more confidence in the fact that our defence can withstand pressure. But we have done in individual games, like Gaz has said, but I think we need more of it, and that's where the transfer window, I think, for me is going to come in.
Any of you guys watch the highlights of the Arsenal game against West Ham? 3-0 down, back up to 3-3. Must have felt like a loss for West Ham fans. I don't know how to feel about it, because it's a game that I feel even the West Ham are doing really well this season. We should win, but coming back from 3-0 down is,
Well, mate, obviously I'm buzzing because West Ham are fighting for a top 4 place and Arsenal are nowhere near. So as long as Arsenal can take points off West Ham, then I'm happy. They're the bigger team, aren't they, as well?
And to be fair, my dad is a West Ham fan as well. So
what is wrong with your family, Rob? That's messed up, mate. How are you all related? That's not right.
Oh, it's just crazy in our house. But he was sitting watching the game, and I was up doing uni work, and he was shouting away like first half. He's like, yes, and they were loving life. And I saw the score. I was like, oh, right, they're doing well. And then about half an hour later, sort of, actually it was still in the first half, when they got a goal back. Oh, for fun. It was so funny. Yeah. But no, I don't know. I think West Ham really fell apart. It was 2 own goals. And I don't know who scored. I don't remember who scored the third, but I think they should have maybe set up more defensively, or I don't know. I just think Arsenal came into the game too easily.
I mean, Ross, when they played us, they bloody set up defensively, and that was terrible.
Exactly. Well, true.
From their point of view.
Yeah, I know what you mean. West Ham's a strange one. I think that in so many ways they're capable of being a really good team. Souček there is a great player, and Lingard's going to be a great player for them going long term. But I think. I just don't think they're going to last in this position they are. I think their time in that position is going to come to an end, and really they're going to be maybe 6th or 7th. And I haven't seen their fixture list or anything, but they I'm pretty sure they have some big 6 games coming up. So yeah, we'll wait to see what happens. But hey, Moyes is doing a far better job with them than he did with us. So fair play to the guy. It's good to see.
Yeah, he'll finish probably higher in the table this year with West Ham than he did with us.
Exactly.
I just was thinking something then, right, while we're talking about West Ham and also while we're talking about Arsenal. I feel like it's something that there's not a lot of people talking about, and it's going to be really fun next season. So have you seen the new UEFA Conference League?
No,
what's that?
This is so mad, right? This is so mad. And I don't blame you, by the way, for not knowing about it, because no one's talking about it. But this season, teams are literally qualifying for this new competition, which is starting next season. And basically, it's a 3rd European competition to go alongside the Europa League and the Champions League. And they're reducing the amount of teams in the Europa League. So all 3 competitions have 32 teams in it. And basically, the conference league, you're going to have teams from like the Irish League potentially qualifying for that competition and sort of lower ranked nations. But also, teams will drop into it from the Europa League in a similar way to teams dropping into the Europa League from the Champions League now.
Yeah.
And the rules change so much next season. Next season, if you finish... So, in the Europa League at the moment, there's a round of 32. They're going to scrap that for next season, and it's just going to go straight into a round of 16. Unless you finish second in your... This is where it gets complicated. Unless you finish second in your Europa League group, in which case you will play the teams that finish 3rd in their Champions League group. And then the same thing happens from there to the Conference League. So it's the sort of competition... and I'm not taking the mick here, James, it's the sort of competition that you could see the likes of Arsenal probably winning, because if they somehow drop into that or if you finish, if City win the League Cup this season, I think a qualification place for it will go to 7th place, and potentially you could see the likes of West Ham or Arsenal being in that competition and going the whole way and winning it next season.
So essentially there's now 3 tiers instead of 2
yes.
European. I'm not sure if the Europa League gets the piss taken out of enough already. Imagine getting to the final of the Conference League. It's oh, well done, you guys made it to the Conference League.
You get to the final of the Conference League and you're playing against Bohemians.
So what way does that work for the Super Cup? Is it is it like a tournament, or
I actually don't know that one. I don't know how that's going to affect the Super Cup, but maybe it's going to be like a 3-team Super Cup. I think that'd be quite cool. But I think it's going to be the sort of competition that you see teams. I'm not sure what level. Maybe not like really lower ranked teams winning it, but I think you'll see the likes of like Villarreal or Roma,
even a West Ham.
and Arsenal, West Ham.
Oh, you can't just put Arsenal in that bracket like that, assuming that I wouldn't hear it.
I'm telling you, man, Arsenal will be in the final of that competition every year. They'll always be up there. It's great for them. Get some silverware for you. Be great.
How's man just gonna be like Villarreal and Arsenal?
We're along the same line.
Well, we'll see who wins when Villarreal do play Arsenal and Unai Emery returns in the semis.
That'll be great, Craig.
No, yeah, I didn't know that was taking place next year. That's really interesting. So, judging from what you're saying, then you can only qualify for it if you drop from the Europa League, or like how did the league positions work? Would now 8th place qualify for the Conference League?
So I'm pretty sure I'm right in thinking that the winners of the League Cup would qualify for it. Now, I'm not sure how that's going to affect the fact that Spurs are in the final. Like, if Spurs lose that final, do they still qualify for it? Because obviously City will have qualified for the Champions League. I'm not 100% sure, but I do know that teams will be qualifying for it, and it will be happening next season. So
that's crazy. I mean, I think it's really beneficial to those teams who are sort of caught in the middle. The likes of maybe a West Ham there, and even the likes of maybe an Aston Villa, or those teams that could be challenging up there that just don't quite reach European. That could be great for them. And I mean, my dad hasn't seen West Ham win any silverware in ages, so it could be good for them to. I think it's been a couple of years now since they qualified for, or they were playing a Europa League qualifier or something a couple of years ago, but they just didn't make it past that. So it could be great for those sort of teams, like to see them play some European football. But yeah.
I mean, I'm going to be totally honest. I'd love to go to a few of the group stage games, between teams from countries that I've never friggin' heard of.
Yeah.
I'd absolutely love that. I bet with fans that have never and thought they'd never see their team in a European competition. I'd love to go and see that.
Yeah, like my closest team here is Finn Harps. You'd love to see like a Finn Harps Arsenal game, or Finn Harps versus Villarreal or something. It'd be great, crack.
Still chucking Arsenal in there, are you?
Oh, of course. And you know what?
Look how much Arsenal are regressing.
I never thought I'd ever hear Arsenal and Finn Harps in the same sentence.
Oh man, Finn Harps would give you a good game. I'm telling you, they're a great team. But yeah, that'd be great, Craig.
No, I think it'll be class. But it's like Welsh teams playing in it potentially. It'll be weird.
Yeah, it's good to see those sort of lower league teams, and it would probably mean more money for them too. And more investment in their stadiums and things. So, I mean, I think it's a good thing all around, really.
Just before the podcast there, we mentioned the Champions League and who we thought would win it. Gaz, you said Bayern, didn't you? And you're quite confident with that. I think my vote goes to Bayern as well. I think they're going to win it twice in a row. They're the only team that looks like they know what they're doing in the competition.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, being a United fan in Manchester, my main worry is City going and doing it. But it's one of those things where I know, like a couple of seasons, well, about 5 years ago, right, I accepted the fact that Liverpool are going to win the Premier League at some point soon, and City are going to win the Champions League at some point soon. It's just gonna happen, get it in your head, because then it'll make it a lot easier when it does actually happen. My main worry was that United wouldn't be at that level where we're challenging at the same time. And we're not quite at that level yet, so it would be a bit heartbreaking to see City win the Champions League, but it's something that I've come to terms with and I can accept. One thing that I can't accept is the idea of Man City winning the treble, or even the dreaded Q word, which with them being in the final of the League Cup, it could very well happen. That would be nightmarish for me.
Yeah.
And not just because I do a show with a City fan every day. Like, it's just growing up. That was what we as United fans had. That was our thing, the treble. Arsenal had the Invincibles, so James, you'll be able to relate to that. That's our thing that we hold dear, and our greatest memory growing up watching the clubs. So to potentially have to share that with Man City, it will be horrible, and I just hope they don't do it.
No, I hope not either. But it's just one of those things they always, and it's just a thing. They're terrible in Europe. I remember watching the Lyon game last year, and the Sterling chance that he missed. He scores that, and it's City are through. And then Lyon go up the other end and score. They're not good in Europe, and I just want that to continue. People are going to, obviously they've won the Premier League now this season. That's fine. I've accepted that. I'm not angry about that. But that idea now that they're maybe going to down tools in the Premier League soon, and put all in now to the Champions League and those big. I just hope not, man. I just hope not. But we'll have to see. Gives me the goosebumps, man. I just don't. Don't want it.
I kind of wish we were in the same position as Arsenal, where our biggest rivals are Spurs, because Arsenal got a good laugh at Spurs this week with them getting knocked out the Europa League. I wish we could do that with City in the Champions League if they got thrashed by the likes of Bayern or something. But in terms of the Champions League, I feel like I actually back PSG to win it personally. I think with Mbappe, and then if Neymar gets back from injury fairly soon, then I could back them. You saw Mbappe score a hat-trick against Barcelona, so I think he has the talent, and with Neymar beside him, I don't know. I feel like they'll just be so dangerous and so lethal that I wouldn't be surprised if they went all the way as well.
Anyone back in Dortmund? Anyone see them as no?
No.
Nah, even like City fans this week I saw saying, we don't get the easy draws. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute, you're in the last 8 of the Champions League. Like, Dortmund was the second easiest draw you could have got. And yeah, they're a very good team, but it's the last 8 of the Champions League, you moron.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, Dortmund's a tricky one. I'd love to see Porto. I would love to see Porto getting a bit further.
Imagine.
Did you see what their manager said? I think it was in a press conference yesterday. Said about they've knocked out Juventus and will knock out Chelsea as well. Fair play, hey? And do you know what? He's going to have egg on his face if it doesn't work out. But I really hope it does. I would love to see that.
Anyways, so that's all from us here today on the Football Draft podcast. And once again, guys, it's been great having you on today. And where can we find you?
Find me on BBC Radio Manchester, weekdays, 6 till 7 p.m. I do a little show called Talking Balls. It's me with my mate Kyle Walker. No, not that one. But he is a City fan, conveniently enough. And yeah, we basically, it's a football phone-in show. Anyone can phone in, get their opinions across. We have a bit of a laugh. We get Ross on as well. Ross comes on over the phone to chat to us. And yeah, it's just a general laugh. So yeah, feel free to listen. Feel free to get involved. We're always on weekdays, 6 till 7 p.m.
Great, excellent.
Sounds great. Be sure to check that out. And as always, you can find the Football Draft on Spotify, iTunes and YouTube. And check out every Wednesdays for our new episodes coming out.
Thanks very much for listening today, guys, and we'll see you later.
See you later.
See you guys later.